Week 11 of college football. Let's start in Happy Valley. Michigan goes to Penn State and wins 24-15. Michigan wins without Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines. You had the Michigan versus everybody stuff going on. So many distractions.
Sharon Moore interview after the game.
I was going to save that for the end of this recap, but
sorry.
What? No. What did you think? First of all, Sharon Moore, Boomer Sooner, brother. Let's go. What did you think of the post-game interview for him?
I thought it was cool. I think I don't know. I guess sometimes you don't know. At first thought, I'm always like, what are we doing? But I guess you never know, like, the whole story of what all's gone on, behind the scenes, and maybe the chaos and like the conversation he had with Harbaugh. Some of that stuff you just never know. So I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say it was cool.
Okay. I thought it was hilarious. Boomer Sooner, Sharon. Proud of you, man. But he's not dead. Jim Harbaugh's still alive.
I know. What do you think Blake Corum thought? Because he was standing there watching. He was like, "Oh man, I didn't know we were going to go there."
Yeah, Blake Corum standing there with that gash in between his eyes, probably like, "Do I need to cry now? I should cry. How do I cry? How do I force myself to cry?" No, it's clear. Jim Harbaugh means a lot to Sharon Moore. Michigan means a lot to him. Sharon Moore should be thanking Jim Harbaugh. Be like, "Hey, I think you're going to make me the next coach at Michigan. This is awesome." But no, it was.
You should have called for his firing right there to take the interim spot.
Hey, and you know me. I am a crier. I'm an emotional person. But I was watching it live and I was laughing. I was just like, this is hilarious. What is happening?
I was watching it and I didn't know what he was saying. So all I could see is him like looking at the camera and like pouring down tears. So I was like, oh man, I wonder what he's saying right now.
Oh, but hey, it was a great win. Great win for Michigan. And going into that one, you and I kind of thought, hey, if not now, then when for Penn State and James Franklin, and maybe never. That offense.
That's like everyone came to that conclusion at the same time after this game.
That offense just they couldn't help their defense enough. They do not have enough playmakers. They may not have a playmaker at the wide receiver position. And Drew Allar, he did not look good in this game. Now, I do not understand why Michigan is so conservative offensively. I don't understand why they don't trust J.J. McCarthy more, but I kind of get why they were as conservative as they were with the way that Penn State's offense was looking, Ted.
I think it's one of those things where they keep it where they need to. There's no reason for them to ask him to do more when they don't need him to do more, right? And maybe that handicaps them a little bit whenever they get to a moment where they do need him to do more and he hasn't been there and hasn't made those throws and they haven't put it on him. But for the time being, it is like it's like a slow controlled death. You remember Austin Powers whenever he's driving the big steamroller and the guy's out in front going, no, and he's like, move,
no,
get out of the way, get out of the way. I feel that's like the way Michigan beats you, right? It's slowly happening and it just like overwhelms you, and you look up and they didn't throw the football one time in the second half. Like it's like a slow moving glacier is how they beat you, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it, and they don't do anything flashy. But the question is there a moment whenever they have to have that? And since they haven't opened it up very much this year, are they going to be able to do it whenever they have to? It's really the only question. And maybe they never have to, though.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
They're going to have to if they play Georgia.
Yeah.
They're going to have to open it up, and we'll get to that. But what'd you think of Franklin going for it on the 4th and 6 at his own 40? There was about I think just under 4.5 minutes to go in the game. And it just looked so bad when you saw the result of the play. Allar, it looks like the wide receiver's running an option route. He runs it out. Allar thinks he's going to run it in and misses. There's no one within like 15 yards of the throw.
Yeah.
Which made the decision, it kind of magnified the decision when it looked as bad as it did. Michigan makes him pay immediately. Next play scores a touchdown, and that got him. That basically ended the football game. I think that made it 24-9. So it was 17-9 when Franklin went for it. And I think a lot of people were really surprised that in that moment, with the way that their defense was playing, that he rolled the dice the way that he did there.
Yeah, you don't. Not 4th and 6 at your own 30. Now, there may be the thought that we never get the ball back. But at that point, you've got to punt it and you got to try and get it back. That's at your own 30. That's just how you got to do it. It's not what you want. That's just a risk that you can't take in that moment, in my opinion. You shouldn't. I thought Neil Brown made some mistakes going for it and some play calling stuff. But yeah, I'm not behind that decision at all.
My two big takeaways from this game were I no longer think Michigan's the best team in the country. I'm gonna have to see more from the offense. I'm gonna have to see them open it up and push it down the field a little more, because you're not gonna be able to beat Georgia or Alabama or several other teams, maybe even Oregon, without producing some explosive plays in the passing game. I just don't think you're going to be able to. I think they're going to beat Ohio State. This is where I'm at with it. I'm just going to need to see Ohio State beat them. They've been able to bully Ohio State.
Yeah.
I don't think they can bully Bama, Georgia. I don't think maybe they could even bully. Florida State's okay, but I know Florida State's going to produce some explosive plays offensively. Oregon's got guys that can produce a lot of explosive plays.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I came away from this game going, okay, yeah, Michigan's really, really good. They got a ton of talent, but I haven't seen enough from them this season to think they can win it all, which I think is the expectation this season.
Well, here's the thing. In order to win a championship, you either have to be so much better than everyone else at every position that it doesn't matter at quarterback, or you have to have the best quarterback. And I don't think they fit either one of those. I don't think they're even, I mean, at best, they maybe are a wash with Georgia, but they're not better at quarterback.
No.
They're not better at quarterback than Bama, which is an interesting thing to say at this point in the season, considering how it started, right?
Milroe he's found a rhythm.
He's found a rhythm. They're not better at quarterback than Oregon. They're not better at quarterback than Florida State. And I think at Florida State and Oregon, I think they're better at them at all the other positions, but by how much? I mean, that's the interesting thing. And I mean, I'm not saying that every position. I'm just saying generally, I would say like their football team, maybe like they're a little bit better roster than those teams, but they're not at quarterback, and that equalizes a lot of it. And that's kind of the thing in the Big Ten. It's think about Penn State. Penn State is a really good football team, but they haven't had a difference maker at quarterback as long as I can remember. And you can only go so far in today's game without having a playmaker at quarterback. You at some point you have to have it. And I think a lot of the way that they run offenses in the Big Ten like eliminates them from getting those type of quarterbacks coming out of high school, like the top quarterbacks. You know, they're fitting those quarterbacks to their system instead of finding some athletes and saying, if we get this guy, look at what we can do. And I think it really hamstrings them.
I'm with you. My other takeaway from this game is, where does Penn State go from here? It's a really good program. James Franklin's won a lot of games, but they can't. He can't get them over the hump. It feels like they're just stuck.
Sounds like it sounds like the fan base and everyone else kind of like I said came to the conclusion at the same time, like they have hit their plateau. They're going nowhere else, and they have a decision to make. All right. Are you happy with where you are? Good, but not good enough to win the Big Ten or compete for a championship? Or are you gonna get aggressive and go make a move and try and get to that next level? Because he's starting to face some heat. Did you see the press conference at the end? Yeah. And the question is right. What are they doing? What's the decision process they're going for two?
I don't know. I mean, you had the chance to make it a one-score game.
Yeah.
They went for two early in the game too.
He says, well, points are going to be hard to come by. Yeah, no kidding. That's why you don't do exactly what you did. I don't know. That was weird.
It was. Nice win for Michigan. It seems like they are on a collision course with Ohio State, and then we're going to have to sit through just an awful Big Ten championship game.
If they lose to Michigan, someone at Ohio State's going to have Jim Harbaugh killed. They're trying to kill him. They're trying to murder him, like through
figuratively.
They're going to actually do it if they lose to this year.
When he's not even on the sideline. Or hey,
oh my gosh,
we'll see. Maybe there's some type of appeal process and he ends up coaching the game, but who knows? All right, the other game, Ole Miss went to Athens, and Ole Miss's offense was moving the ball well early. It was clear Ole Miss's defense wasn't going to stop Georgia, but Jackson Dart was doing some nice things. Quinshon Judkins was ripping off some big runs. It was 14-14. I was sitting there thinking, hey, maybe we're going to get an absolute classic between these two teams. And then Georgia absolutely choked the life out of them. All dogs from the second quarter on. Final score 52-17. Is inevitable, Ted. My goodness.
Yeah. Credit to Lane Kiffin for scheming up some stuff and throwing some things at them early on that had them on their heels, but they're so good defensively. It's like, is that all you brought? Because we've adjusted to that. We fixed our flaws in the way we adjust or whatever it was that you wanted to isolate, and you better bring more to the party because offensively they're going to keep chugging on. And, you know, you've mentioned it. Carson Beck is probably the least talked about quarterback in the country, and he is just lighting it up.
He did some nice things, threw it well. He picked up some first downs with his legs, right? Which you know how that affects a defense. I continue to be impressed with his ability to play from the pocket, but the Georgia running game with Edwards and Milton was effective.
Yeah.
Georgia's O-line was mauling Ole Miss in this game. Did a really, really nice job in some of their zone combos, just getting a ton of movement at the point of attack, getting up to the second level, covering up the backers. arriving with physicality, and then Kendall Milton was just pouring it downhill. Had some really explosive runs in this game. Ole Miss had no answers for what they were doing offensively. They just couldn't hold up. They couldn't hold up front, and that just opened the floodgates.
Yeah, that's the value in winning the line of scrimmage. If you can't hold up to an offensive line, the whole thing falls apart. You know, defense has to work together like a puzzle. You got to be able to fit it and at least have a stalemate on the line of scrimmage, and then the backers can fit accordingly. But if you're getting your butt whipped up front, it means the backers are going to get their butts whipped, and the whole thing falls apart.
Was good to see Brock Bowers back out there for Georgia. Caught a touchdown, but it's just we'll see him get back into the groove of things and just see if he can get back to what he looked like before the ankle injury. Kirby Smart called out that fan base. Seemed like Ole Miss struggled with the environment. A lot of procedure penalties. It sounded loud from my couch, but Georgia only had 8 third downs in this game offensively. They only had to snap the ball 8 times with it being third down.
Oh, wow. And I wonder how many of those were like 3rd and 5 or more.
Oh my gosh. But they had 311 yards passing, 300 yards rushing. Just after, and this is my number one takeaway, after watching Michigan and then watching Georgia's the best team in the country.
More explosive.
Just more explosive, more dominant, even at the line of scrimmage. The only other takeaway from that performance is, hey, we saw Dart get banged up and Spencer Sanders sighting. How about that?
Nice.
Yeah, it's good to see him back out there.
That's like one of the weirdest things, man.
So strange.
Yeah.
But that was it was fun early, and then it got real ugly from the second quarter on. That was a beatdown in Athens.
Yeah. Yeah, Georgia is, they've been so good, and to start off the year, it's like, oh, is Georgia really? Are they going to be good again? And it's when they're challenged. They've been challenged like 3 times this year, where they've actually got something that's worth their attention, and they've come out and absolutely dominated in those games. So it's going to be hard for someone to knock them off. I mean, they're the team until someone knocks them off, and that's gonna be a huge challenge.
Yeah, I think they're gonna get their best tests in the SEC championship game. I think Bama's the only team built to beat them.
Yeah,
Milroe's gonna have to be great. We'll talk about that when we get there.